My name is Maddie, and this is group number one. The topic that we chose to discuss that everybody had a certain level of expertise in was life at Purdue and specifically how it has been impacted by COVID-19. So, like I said, my name's Maddie. I am an expert on the subject, I guess, because I lived my first semester at Purdue and part of my second semester, and I can talk to how it has impacted my freshman year.
I'm Blake. I'll be a sophomore at Purdue next year, so talking about student life at Purdue is something that I feel like I have some sort of expertise in. Same as Maddie, I had a full first semester on campus and then part of my second semester, but that was cut short uh, because of the pandemic. And at Purdue, I'm on the swim team, and so being part of athletics is like an interesting perspective sometimes when discussing student life. So that's what I have to bring to the conversation.
I'm Kelly. I'll be a junior at Purdue. I would consider myself an expert on this topic because I have been able to experience Purdue pre-pandemic and or during pandemic, I guess. So I've had experience in the class, and I think I've gotten more specific, or like into more specific classes for my major. So got the gen eds out of the way freshman year. I've been involved in Greek life. I've been living on campus. So I think I have a pretty broad view of Purdue and different organizations. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Ming, and I think I consider myself as expert on life at Purdue because I lived at Purdue for a year, and I'm also preparing for graduate school application, so we can also talk about that. And I'm also conducting my research in Dr. Qingdeng's lab at Lilly. So yeah, that's basically what I'm going to talk about. Also, I am an international student, so how COVID affect international students, I can talk about that.
Hi, I'm Isabel. I am going to be a senior this year. I am in the engineering school, so I can talk a little bit about my experience there. I lived in the dorms my first year. I lived in a Greek house my second year, and my junior year I lived in an apartment off campus. So I can talk about my different experience with the different housing situations I've had. I've had good roommates, bad roommates, all of that. I also am an out-of-state student, so I can talk about my experience coming to Indiana for the first time. Purdue was the first time I've ever been to Indiana. I've been on campus in the summers. I've been on campus during the regular semesters. I also was on campus during quarantine for the second half of spring semester, so I can talk a little bit about that. And, advice for incoming freshmen, how it's going to affect my senior year, that sort of thing. So that's a little bit about me.
I think one thing that we've gotten to know about everybody through this course is that we all have some pretty cool extracurricular activities. So Zimming, do you want to talk about like your lab work and how it has been affected by COVID-19?
Yes, sure. Going back to the lab topic. So I think you have some research experiences necessary for apply a graduate school because they really look important for that. And I think the lab life is both boring and interesting.
Okay.
I'm saying boring because basically you have to repeat it same movement every day, like extract plasmid and PCR, and I also have to take care of fish every Tuesday. I need to feed more than 10,000 fish.
Gotcha. So it gets a little repetitive after a while.
Yeah.
How has it changed due to COVID-19?
The lab was shut down for 2 months maybe, but because our lab is studying inflammation, so I think 2 lab members were allowed to stay in lab to study COVID-19. So I think they tested hydroxychloroquine in the zebrafish, but I don't know the result.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, just got back to the lab, so.
Yeah, and after 2 months, we as undergrads were allowed to get into the lab but we are asked to sign a SOP, something called SOP, but I don't know what does SOP mean. So basically, you need to wear a mask in the lab and keep social distancing with other lab members.
Gotcha. Okay, so Blake, how has social distancing and the new COVID rules impacted the swim team?
Pretty much since February when our season ended until now, we've been like shut down as a team, kind of as a swim team. So we haven't been able to have any organized practices or like team meetings or anything like that in person. But I'm on campus right now, and a lot of other people on the team are, and we're all kind of spread out in terms of like our swimming situation. So some people are at like the YMCA, some people train at the West Lafayette Junior Senior High School just down the road, and the other day they just opened up the co-rec at Purdue for people to like sign up for time slots to come swim. And so recently that's what I've been doing, and right now there's no like restart date at all for us to like look forward to, so we don't know how long we're going to be all spread out like this, but we hope that once everyone gets on campus and everyone like tests before coming to campus, we'll be able to have like a group practice again and finally like get things back to normal. But for now, we're all still pretty spread out.
I gotcha. How do you think that it will affect your regular season?
Like COVID in general?
Yeah, do you think you'll even have like a regular season planned?
Yeah, no one really knows right now. It could be, there's a lot of different things that could happen. There could be like meets just with really strict social distancing guidelines, or we could just have like virtual meets where we swim in our own pool and then we send our times to another team and compare, and that's like how we compete.
Wow.
So that would be kind of boring, but
Yeah.
that would just be what we have to do if like we can't actually have a season.
Yeah, a very different feel for sure.
Yeah, it won't be normal for sure.
Yeah. Isabel, how do you think that COVID is going to affect your senior year on campus and like the plans that you had for as a senior?
So actually, I myself, along with another girl in computer engineering, started in the spring the Purdue chapter of Girls Who Code, which is sort of like national organization that teaches young girls in sort of like middle school and high school the basics of computer programming. But because of COVID, it's likely that it's not going to be able to be in person. And also, it was sort of cut short in the spring because of everybody needing to leave West Lafayette immediately. So it's still unclear how we're going to be able to run that in the fall. It might be virtual. The organization is, I think, coming out with guidelines to have it be hosted virtually, but we're not sure. Not all of the girls have computers, so that's kind of hard, especially if their parents are working from home and they need their computers, that kind of thing.
And not being there in person to help teach them.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a lot harder to sort of look at their computers, see what they're doing, and figure it out than like doing it virtually, you know, sharing your screen.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's definitely one thing that is going to be tough going into senior year. But I think also like the social scene in general is going to be a lot different. I turned 21 in quarantine in April. So since then, it's like there's not much places that you can go, and I really don't know what it's going to look like in the fall when everybody comes back, just because going out could expose people to the virus almost anywhere. So
the bars in West Lafayette all shut down anyway, so it'll just be really interesting for sure. All right, so Kelly, it's really lucky that you got your study abroad done before all this hit. Do you want to talk about that experience and what you went through for those of us who maybe can't go on a study abroad for a while?
No, I feel so bad for you guys. I hope that in the future, in the next couple years at least, they'll open up study abroad again to countries at least close to the U.S. Maybe not. Who knows what it's going to be like, but I loved my experience. I was on a trip to Mallorca, Spain, which is an island off Spain, with, I think there were 40 Purdue students. But we took all of us took 2 classes while we were there. So we got to go to a university in Mallorca, and we were taught by the Spanish professors there. And then after class, we would just take the bus to the beach. And so that was really fun. And we also host families, which was a really cool, different experience. I had to speak only Spanish with them the entire time I was there.
Did you have any like previous Spanish classes that you had taken?
Yeah, so I started Spanish when I was in 8th grade.
Okay.
And then I came in with some credit. And then, so I'm a double major. So I'm also a Spanish major. And so that definitely helped a lot, but it improved so much while I was there. It was, yeah, definitely, I could see the improvement, and so could my host family.
Yeah.
It will be totally different when you in a country that speak a totally different language. I have the same experience.
Sure. What do you think? Do you think what was your English like before you came to America?
Basically, every Chinese student were asked to learn English, but we cannot speak or listen very well. But because your lack of the real circumstances, like real environment. But when I was here, I have to take that. I have to use English to communicate with my professors and classmates. That's very important. So I think I got some improvements.
Oh, for sure. I think that like being in the setting is way different from learning it in a classroom, and it just helps a lot more. Learning like the dialect in the area you're in, it helps. And they were really helpful in Spain too. They were really easygoing. They knew that I was not like Spanish is my second language, which was nice for them to keep in mind because definitely nowhere near as good as them. But I definitely came back more fluent. So.
Yeah, okay. So one thing that a couple of us have in common is that this was our first year at Purdue this past year. So Blake, do you want to talk about the transition from high school to Purdue's campus?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, it's way different just because we're here at Purdue, like, living on campus and everything. But I think that, like, in terms of, like, course load and, like, the difficulty of work, it wasn't too big of, like, a jump forward. I think my high school did a good job of, like, preparing me for college. I took a lot of AP classes and, like, dual credit things. So I guess, like, I was ready for that. But the whole idea of like making a whole schedule and like knowing what to do like during the day, like when I wasn't at class, and like I had all this free time that like I didn't really have all the time before, like in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And so figuring out like routines for studying and like doing homework was really like the biggest like change that I had to make in order to like start to succeed at Purdue.
Right. And I think something that surprised me too as an incoming freshman was my high school had always been pretty good about like letting you retake tests or if you were sick or something. So my second semester, my first organic chemistry test, I was sick. So I had to take it with like 102-degree fever instead of, being able to like reschedule it or say, hey, I'm sick, and I can't come into class. So that was something pretty interesting. But we also have Ziming, who transferred from China. So what are some of the differences between college in China and in the US, Ziming?
Yeah, there are a lot of difference. First is tuition. The tuition here is really expensive. Like in China, I think I should spend maybe $1,000 for a year.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, that's a big difference. And the second thing is the different ways to study. So basically in China, we don't have too much homeworks, assignments, or other things. Basically, your final grade depends on your final test.
Wow.
So you really need to work really, really hard in that week, and doing well in the final means you're doing well in this semester. But it's totally different here. I have to keep working the whole semester to
Mhm.
get a good grade.
So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just curious. What do you like, the way China does it or the way we do it better, like at Purdue?
Uh, both are good, I think, because here I think I can handle multitasking. That's basically the biggest thing I learned here. I have to like I have to fix courses and have to arrange time to schedule things very well. But basically you don't have that much pressure during final because you know how what grade you will get.
Gotcha. Because you have other grades besides just that final test, right?
Yeah.
Here. Yeah. So, Isabel, you said that you were an out-of-state student and that before coming to Purdue, you had never been to Indiana. So, what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in New Jersey. I've been here my whole life. I live just outside of Manhattan and I went to high school in Manhattan. So like I lived a very urban life
Uh-huh.
going into college. I was commuting in and out of the city by myself at like 13 years old. All of my friends live in the city. So coming to Purdue, I had like never seen a cornfield before. I don't know a single person who had like ever lived on a farm. Like I didn't even know that farmers, honestly, I didn't really know that farmers exist. Like I know they existed, but I had never met one before.
Right.
And going to Purdue, I just remember that drive from Indianapolis to Purdue when you're just like on whatever highway that is and you see the cornfield on both sides and you're just going for an hour. I was actually baffled at seeing the corn everywhere. And just sort of like being at Purdue, I mean, you guys all know it's sort of like a bubble of a city, right? And you go 15 minutes in any direction and there's sort of nothing there.
Mhm.
And it's not at all a commuter. Yeah, I mean, it's not at all a commuter campus. Like people who are on campus are just on campus all the time. People don't really like come and go unless occasionally for like Greek events.
Mhm.
But so I got there and you know, it's sort of this insular place. The the public transit system is nothing like what it is here. And there's no like city around. It's like just the college and people have like their own cars. Like where I'm from, people have their own Metro card. Like it was, so that was definitely different for me, but I really enjoyed it. And I think a lot of my friends who stayed in the Northeast really missed out on this experience where they could meet people from like all over the country. I legitimately had never met someone from the Midwest before going to college. So like learning about the Midwest and the culture that really does exist there and learning about like all of the sort of like large manufacturing companies that come and advertise at Purdue because they have headquarters or giant factories in Indiana. So I really enjoyed it. It was definitely though a culture shock and I really did miss the city when I was at school that first semester. But I got used to it and I also feel like it's a really great like college experience because again nobody's coming and going. Everyone who's around in West Lafayette is there for the school. So like anywhere you go you see people from the school all the time and it makes a giant campus of like 45,000 people feel a lot smaller because you see familiar faces everywhere.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, so one thing I think that's going to change for all of us this coming semester is how COVID is going to impact us. So, Kelly, do you want to talk about how like it's impacted your schedule, how you think it's going to impact your junior year on campus?
So I had no idea that all my classes were moved online except for one until like I heard my friends talking about it. So I looked at my schedule and I was just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Because two of my classes were removed completely. And that was physics and then bio 203, which is anatomy.
Uh,
So I had emailed my advisor and he told me, yep, your physics class has been canceled for the semester. Sorry, but here's an alternative. So luckily I'll be able to take that physics class in place and I'll still count towards my degree. And my anatomy class came back, but it's online.
Yeah.
I only have one class in person. I'm sure that's what it's going to be like for all of you guys too. So it'll definitely be interesting. I'm hoping I'll be able to find a good study spot. I feel like that might be difficult on campus.
Right.
There will be a lot of social distancing. So I'm
Mhm.
a little bit nervous about that. But like my experience with online class, I didn't really like it like second half of second semester.
Mhm.
I like to be in person. So I'm gonna have to make some adjustments and hopefully I'll be able to get the hang of it. But yeah.
Right. I feel like with online, it's like a whole other kind of accountability. Like I didn't have a set time I have to come to class and all this stuff. There's no attendance, so it's really hard to like keep on that track for sure. But
Yeah.
yeah, Isabel, how has COVID impacted such a big city like New York and, big metropolitan areas that you've lived in?
Yeah, I mean, so in the news, it's since March in the news, like we here have been locked down. And I came home for spring break sort of like right before the peak happened. And I went back to Purdue for quarantine because I knew that I would do much better in school if I was there. Most of my friends were still there, that are in my classes. And like, I think another point, like I totally agree with Kelly, like online classes were so hard, but like even more so when you don't have the people around you that are in your class that you can do homework with and stuff. But so I was really lucky. I was able to sort of like fly right back to Indiana right before they stopped
Yeah.
all those flights. But I mean, this summer we've been in like complete lockdown. I think I saw daylight once this week, like outside. I and also it to like make it even more like insular. All my friends live in the city, so if I want to see them at all, I have to take public transit, which like isn't safe. So if I want to go anywhere, I have to drive, and it driving now has gotten kind of crazy because nobody's taking public transit, everybody's driving, and so the traffic has gotten pretty bad.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we've almost everybody here has been in like complete lockdown.
Yeah. Zimming, how do you feel about having to wear a mask everywhere next semester?
I think although it's really uncomfortable, but it's really necessary to protect both us and others.
Right.
Students wearing a N95 mask in the lab for a day, and it's really not a good experience.
Yeah. Been an adjustment.
Yeah.
How does it affect your grad school plans?
Grad school plan, yeah, I was planning to apply a grad school in US, but for now I'm not sure. It's also because of the tension between China and the US
Right.
recently.
Do you want to talk about the tension that has happened and how that has affected you personally?
Yeah, basically I don't understand why the US or Chinese government want to have a fight with each other. Because we have so many connections. There are more than I think 30,000 students, Chinese students in US, and many commercial connects, because I think China buying corn, many corn every year from US, and
Right.
US also use the manufacturing in China, like China assemble iPhone and other things like we use every day. So I don't really understand why we have to have a fight.
Right. And I think something that was going to be a really big deal for Purdue, especially because we have so many international students, was the plan to remove like student visas and things if schools went 100% online. So I know
Yes,
that.
the
Yeah.
policy is really unstable.
Uh-huh.
Trump administration said like if you want to opt in a fully online option, you have to go back to your country.
Right.
Then you have to go to the get your visa again, because if you want to visa keep valid, you need to stay in US.
Mhm.
So that's a requirement. So, but now you can have a fully online option in US. Basically, that's changing every day. I don't know.
Yeah. So hopefully it'll stay pretty constant for you so you don't have to keep worrying about that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, seriously. But so I know that it's going to be different for all of us, but I was wondering if we just have some advice for the incoming freshmen. Isabel, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I think something for the incoming freshmen, um, the social scene at Purdue is going to look different this year than what it normally does. And people who are a bit older at Purdue will say like, oh, the social scene at Purdue is different from other large state universities, because Purdue can be more strict about things than other schools. But um, I really hope that the freshmen don't judge Purdue's social scene for what they see this semester, especially with all the sporting events. Like, the campus is just going to be totally different. All the campus events are going to be different, sporting events. Like Blake was saying, his swim team, they're not even sure if they're going to have in-person meets.
Right.
So I'm sure there aren't going to be like spectators of any sort. So I just hope that like the freshmen don't take it with a grain of salt. Like what they're gonna see this semester is absolutely like not what the campus is normally like, and I think that everybody would agree with that.
Right. And you're an engineering major too, correct?
Yes,
Engineering? Are you
computer engineering. Yeah.
So do you have any advice for the incoming freshmen in FYE? I know it's, everybody hears horror stories, but
Yeah. I mean, FYE, I think, is that time period where they're trying to figure out how well prepared everyone was from high school. It's sort of like an even playing field. A lot of people, or sorry, it evens the playing field for like going into sophomore year. And there are people on like polar opposite sides of the spectrum. People come in and think it's really easy. People come in and think it's not easy at all. I think from what I've seen from other people, the worst thing that you can do is like is think it's easy and then put off all of your work, because it's sort of your first semester in college, and like this is kind of true of any major, like adjusting to the college workload is just different. My high school, I think, prepared me really well for college, but like doing your work in college is different from doing your work in high school, and like taking exams in college is just different from taking exams in high school. So like my biggest piece of advice for people going into engineering is to just like try like actually take advantage of the office hours, like do well your freshman year, because honestly it's probably the highest your GPA is ever going to be. And so like the second you get into your major, your GPA is going to tank. Just like do as well as you can, and it'll like totally help you in the future.
yeah. All right, Kelly, do you have any advice as an older, more wizened bio student?
I would say don't get discouraged. I think I liked bio way more before I came to Purdue, like the classes at least. They were a lot easier in high school. I think that my teachers, at least in high school, made it a little more fun just because it was like the class sizes were smaller, so it was easier to do. But it can be pretty discouraging coming and like taking your first exam. Like you're not always going to do the best that you think you're going to do. But like Zemming said, there's a lot of opportunities to make up for like bad tests by completing homework assignments and projects and labs and whatnot. But I would say just stick with it. I just took genetics this past year, and that was a really hard class, but I loved it. I
Right.
thought it was interesting. So the difficulty is definitely going to be there, but all the classes are very interesting.
Mhm. All right. Oh, sorry, Isabel, were you gonna say something?
Oh yeah, I just want to say like totally agree with Kelly. I mean, people joke that like a 60% on a test to a college student is totally different from a high school student, and it's so true. Like, bombing a test in college is completely different from bombing a test in high school.
Getting like a 60% in Calc 2 and like being just so happy.
Oh, yeah. That is cause for celebration. And I think people coming in from like high school students, incoming freshmen, just like don't get that because they've been trained to think like, oh, I need a 90 or higher or whatever it is.
Yeah, especially when there are classes where like a 75% in the class overall is like an A and so unattainable. So Blake, what do you have to say to the incoming freshmen?
I would say a lot of the same things Kelly said. Just like, because I'm a bio major too, and like biology was always my favorite subject in high school, and AP Bio was my favorite class. And so it was like a little bit discouraging because I used my AP credit to get out of the first year biology classes. So I took Bio 232 and 242 last year. And so like going right into that, right out of the gate was kind of discouraging because it was really hard to adjust to just a whole nother level of the information that we were learning.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if any incoming freshmen were able to really sit down and come up with a plan to study for exams and make sure that they're always on top of what they're doing in school before anything else, then they should be able to make things work out pretty well, and it shouldn't be too hard of an adjustment.
Yeah. All right. Zooming, any final words for the freshmen?
I think it's probably good to go to lab as early as you can because it can help you to find what you truly love.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
All right.
That's my final word.
Well, thank you so much for participating, and I hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your summers. It's been really great to talk about our campus experience, how COVID has affected all of us and could affect all of us. So I hope you guys are staying safe, and thanks for the discussion, guys.